Good morning student. Today in our English period I am going to start with the chapter 1. Chapter 1 name is The Fun They Had. Before you read this, the story we shall read is set in the future when books and school as we now know them will perhaps not exist. How will children study then? The diagram below may give you some idea. So, in this story we are going to learn about, or we are going to see the situation. The story is set in the future, that our future kids come to know about the past, means past, the just now our present situation, means they come to know that at that time they are dealing with the computers for learning, as they having virtual classrooms, means they are not going for a real school, they just having a classroom in their home only. They having a robotic teachers moving e-text, that is they are using computers for learning things. So this story is basically set accordingly in the future. In the pairs discuss 3 things that you like best about your school and 3 things about your school that you would like to change, write them about. So this activity is given to you people, that you have to discuss 3 things that you like best about your school and 3 things about your school that you would like to change, and write them down. Have you ever read words on a television or computer screen? Can you imagine a time when all books will be on computers and there will be no books printed on paper? Would you like such books better? So, have you ever tried to read out from television, from the television screen or from the computer screen? And have you ever imagined such situation at that time you don't have this paper books, the printed books? Would you like such books better, and would you like that books better in comparison to the books we have in a printed form? Now let's start with the chapter. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed 16 May 2157, she wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book." So in this story, main character Margie, and she write on that night in her diary on page headed 17 May 2157, and she writes that today Tommy found a real book. That real book means the book in which printed letters, which is a printed book. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. So Margie's grandfather once told him that there was a time when they had books in a printed form. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen, you know. So now as Tommy found one real book, so now they turn the pages of that book which were yellow and crinkly. Crinkly means with many folds or line, and pages are yellow. It was awfully funny. So for them, for Tommy and for the Margie, that book seems funny because they never seen such type of book previous. To read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen, you know. So as they were dealing their teaching work as in computer, as a machinery, so the book, that real book, seems them funny, that the letters on that book, inside that book, it's fixed on one place, it not moving. While when we reading from the computer screen, that text will moving. And then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time. So when they turn the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time. He said, Tommy, what a waste when you are through with the book, you just throw it away. I guess our television screen must have had a million. So now when we didn't like something at that time, what we do, we give some expression ghee, so that ghee, that what dealing with that, said Tommy, what a waste. Tommy said, what a waste it is when you are through with the book, you just throw it away. I guess means once you read it out the whole book and then after you have to throw that, it is just fell by the Tommy. He is not sure in that point. Our television screen must have had a million books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away. So then Tommy said that our television screen must have had a million books. So as a machinery that machinery teaching, that machinery computer, so inside that we can find a lots of book on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away. And once the story completed, then we are not going to throw it away. So now Tommy is comparing real book with the machinery book. Same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and had not seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. So Margie also said that same with mine. She was 11, Margie's age 11, and had not seen as many telebook as Tommy had. Tommy's age was 13, so Tommy seen many book more than the Margie's in comparison to Margie's. She said, where did you find it? In my house, he pointed without looking, because he was busy reading in the attic. So then after Margie asked that where would you find this? Where did you find this book? In my house. So Tommy replied that in my house. He pointed without looking. He just replied because he was busy reading in the attic. In the attic, it's a place below the roof used as a storeroom. What it about? So as Tommy is busy with the reading the book, so Margie asked that what it about, that what is about that book. So school. Tommy replied it was about the school. Margie was scornful. Scornful, that is, means Margie not as the Tommy replied that it was about the school. So by hearing that word school, Margie feels so worthless because she don't like school. School, what's there to write about school? I hate school. So she feels that thing useless, worthless. Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. So always Margie hated school, but nowadays she more hated than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she said been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the country inspector. So why Margie hated school? Because mechanical teacher, that is the machinery that teaching Margie. So mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography. So in geography geography subject continuously with test after test, and she had been doing worse and worse, and in all the tests her performance her worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully. So her mother also feel bad for Margie's performance, and she shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the country inspector. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. So in this two line it explained about the inspector, country inspector, that he was a round little man with a red face and whole box of tools with dials and wire. The box is full of dials and wires. He smiled at Margie and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. So when country inspector came, he smiled at Margie and he gave apple to Margie, and then took the teacher apart, that machine that took apart. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew how all right. So Margie had hoped. At that time Margie wished that machine maybe not be in a good condition, and means he wouldn't know how to put it together again. So Margie wished that machine is just now in that condition, it should be in that condition only, it not be overcome with that problem. But he knew how all right, but he knew very well that the country inspector will be able to cope up with the machinery default or what is the problem inside it. And after an hour or so, there it was again large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. And after some time, country inspector came with that machine, and now everything be all right inside the machine. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated Most was the slot where she had to put homework and test paper. She always had to write them out in a punch code. They made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. So, the Margie hated that part most, in which she has to submit the homework. And for that submitting homework inside the machine, there is a particular one slot, one space is given. She always had to write them out in a punch code. She has to use some particular language, that is a punch code. They made her learn when she was 6 years old, and she learning that language when she was in a 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in a no time. In a no time, that means that mechanical teacher calculated marks so quickly in a lesser time. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Margie's head. So, after the dealing with that machine, that what's wrong inside it, and after checked out that machine, then the inspector smiled at Margie and patted Margie's head. Means with patted that means gently we touch somebody's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault." And then he said to her mother that it's not a little girl's fault. "Mrs. Jones, I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick." And then after he said that I think that the geography sector inside that machine, geared means adjusted at very high level or at very high standard. "Those things happen sometimes. I have slowed it up to an average 10-year level." So, now I adjust that at up to the 10-year level. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory, and he patted Margie's head again. And then after he said that everything will be alright, her performance is also satisfactory, and again he patted Margie's head. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. So, as the machine is now in a proper condition, as everything will be settled by that country inspector properly inside that machine. So, she was disappointed when she was not happy with that. She want that country inspector took that machine with him. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. And this thing is happened with earlier happened with the Tommy, that in his machinery teacher, that history sector will not worked out properly, and it was taken by the country inspector for 1 month. So, she also expecting that same situation with her. So, she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" And then after she said to Tommy that why would anyone means why would anyone like to write about school, because as we read it the earlier parts and we come to know that she hated school almost. Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes, because it's not our kind of school, stupid. And then after Tommy looked at her with a superior, with the higher level, we can say at her superior eyes, because it's not our kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago. He added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully, centuries ago. So, centuries year, 100-year time period, we can say century. So, then after Tommy said to her that that school was not our type school, just now we having, it's a old kind of school. Margie was hurt. Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago. So, as Margie was not happy, as her machinery teacher is now in a better situation, so she is not happy with that thing. So she just replied, well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago. She read the book over his shoulder for a while, then said, anyway, they had a teacher. Means book is read by the Tommy. So just then after she asked Tommy that anyway they had teacher. Sure, they had teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher, it was a man. So, regular, it means here normal of the usual kind. So, sure they had. So, Tommy replied that sure they had a teacher, but it's not a regular teacher. Regular teacher means they having the machinery teacher. So, in that patterns and everything is set inside it, but it was a man. So, the old kind of school having a teacher, but it was a human being. A man? How could a man be a teacher? Then after hearing this, Margie replied, a man, how could be a man be a teacher? It's quite surprised her. Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. So, Tommy replied in that well, he just told the boys and girls things, means explaining the things and give them homework and then ask them question. A man isn't smart enough. So, Margie said man isn't smart enough, that men are not too much intelligent in comparison to the machinery teacher. Sure he is, my father knows as much as my teacher. Then Tommy replied that sure he is, means Tommy is not agree with the point of Margie that the man is smarter than the computer. So Tommy replied that sure he is, they are intelligent as my father knows as much as my teacher. And then to prove that point that teachers, the man teacher, that human beings as a teacher, they are also intelligent in comparison to the computer teachers or the machinery teachers. So he proved out that point by saying that my father knows as much as my teacher. He knows almost as much, I bet. Bet, it's word that I bet. Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. So Tommy bet with Margie that I'm sure I bet with you that they are, means as a human teacher, are intelligent and smart. Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. Dispute means now Margie don't want to continue with that argument. So just she added, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. So just she added in that I wouldn't like that some strange person came into my house. Tommy screamed with laughter. You don't know much, Margie. The teacher didn't live in the house. They had a special building and all the kids went there. So after getting the reply of Margie, as Margie said that I wouldn't like that any strange person came inside my house. So Tommy screamed with the laughing, means loudly he laughed, and he said that Margie, the teacher, didn't came to the house. The kids went to the school, and school is in the building structure, and the kids went there. And all the kids learned the same thing. Then after again she having one more question, sure if they were the same age. So what she asked, she said that kids learn the same thing, that all the kids whosoever came there learned the same thing. Then Tommy replied, sure if they were the same age, if they are at a same age, then they learn that same thing. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. So here Margie is talking about that machinery teacher, that machinery teacher's mind is already set previously. So, and it fitted according to the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. Just the same, they didn't do it that way then. So then after Tommy said that at that time they are not doing in this way. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. And now the Tommy was irritated by the Margie. So Tommy replied that if you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. I didn't say I didn't like it. So quickly Margie replied that I didn't say that I didn't like the books or I didn't like it, said quickly. She wanted to read about those funny school, because Margie, she also wanted to read about those funny school. Now Margie is see that real school, it seems like her a funny school. They were not even half finished when Margie's mother called Margie school. Margie looked up, not yet, Mama. So they were not enough half finished, so they were not finished the book half, and at that time her mother called her that Margie school, that it's a time of school now. Margie looked up, not yet, Mama. Now, said Mrs. Jones, and it's probably time for Tommy too, and it is a time for Tommy's school too. So student, in this period we stop here. Now further will be continue in the next period. So just read out this chapter, whatever we just now completed, just revise it and go through with it. Thank you. Goodbye.